Welcome to today's webinar. During our session today, we will be reviewing the NOVAtime mobile application. Today, you will learn how to configure the device, and you will also get an overview of the employee and supervisor experience using the application. Before we proceed, I would like to highlight if you're an Ascentus NOVAtime client, please make sure when you download your mobile application that you download the Ascentus mobile app. This one, as long as you have access to HR and payroll, employees would be able to see their paycheck history, they would be able to see company directories, they would be able to see their W-2 information on demand. Users would also have access to opt out of receiving paper W-2 forms. Employees would also have access to viewing their benefit information if you're using our HR modules. And then users would also have full functionality to the NOVAmobile application, which allows users to see timesheets, request time off, view accruals, schedules, and same functionality applies to the manager. So please make sure that if you're an Ascentus NOVAtime client that you download the mobile application with the purple logo. All right, so let's proceed. Please note if during our session today, if you have any questions, please submit those questions to the question inbox. However, if you're needing technical support as far as configuring the application, please be sure to contact our support team. Lastly, before the session gets started, please make sure that you download the handouts. Use all the handouts as a reference resource as you learn to use the mobile application. Now, with that being said, let me turn it over to our presenter for today. His name is Jeff Naduzak, and he is our client support manager. Jeff, take it away.
Hello, everyone. In today's session, we're going to cover the NOVAtime app. The agenda for today will be looking at the admin role and basic customization of the NOVAtime app, the settings and adding a news record, creating and adding function keys, configuring access groups. Next, we'll look at the employee experience from the app, how to register a device, punching in and out, job transfers or location transfers, PTO requests, submitting timesheets. We're going to then look at the supervisor, navigation, usage, just a basic overview. And lastly, we'll look at the online resources we have available. Currently, I'm going to log into the NOVAtime website as an administrator. Once logged in, I'm going to navigate to the News Security page. The News Security page is used to create a list of devices that will connect to the database. This could be time clocks, this could be Nova apps, this could be APIs. So the setting entered on this page allows the device to log in and transmit data between the app and the website. So in the menu bar on the top left corner, I'm going to cycle down to News Security. From here, I'm going to create a new security record by hitting the New button. And I'm going to need 4 main requirements. Those requirements are going to be the validation key or the device ID. By doing that, I'll just hit Generate ID. I'm going to pick the device type, which would be NOVAmobile device. The description, NOVAmobile, and the client ID. The client ID can be found by clicking the menu bar in the top left corner and looking all the way down to the bottom, where we can then copy the device ID. I just typically do a Control-C, Control-V right into the client ID. Once you have those 4 fields completed, then you're going to want to hit the Save button. Once you do that, you have successfully created a news record. The next thing we're going to want to do is go over to the HW devices and create your function key templates for the app. So I'm going to go ahead and go into the menu all the way down to HW devices. Underneath templates, there's a tab for function key templates. I'm going to go ahead and click that. So what are function keys? So the template setup provides the functionality needed by various users while using the mobile application. So before creating and configuring these templates for both employees and supervisors, the administrator really needs to think about the type of experience they would like to create for each group of mobile app users. So currently I have two mobile app configurations. I have an employee and I also have a supervisor. We can create multiple templates based on groups of employees. So for example, you might have an hourly group of employees that you may want to use the app to have them punch, do transfers, request time off, view vacation balances, and so on. However, you may want to have a group for your salary employees that does not have a punch button or a group transfers that only allows them to do salary type functionality. In that case, you can create a separate mobile template. And to do that, you would hit the new button, create a template. You could just call it salary employee. For the clock type, you're going to want to pick NOVAmobile employee device. Once you do that, it'll start to give you a list of options to select from. Each one of these codes or positions essentially is a button within the application. So you can do swipe and go, which allows you to essentially punch. And that'll take that as the first punch of the day. And then the next time they use the swipe and go, it would then put that as the out punch. So it understands where to put the punches based on the order of punching. Now, punch in allows you to just put that punch into the in cell of the timesheet. Punch out allows you to just put that out punch into the out punch of the timesheet. The transfer button allows you to do a transfer into another maybe location or a job or a department or a work center. We can also use the request for time off feature, which allows the employee to request PTO or vacation. They can view their accrual balance to see how much time they have left. If you're using the points module, they can view their points. They can view schedules. They can view time off request status, meaning is it pending? Is it approved? Is it declined yet? They can manage timesheets. And most certainly for hourly employees, we would typically have this as read only, so they could just see their timesheets and maybe submit their time. There's a submit rule that would ask them a question. There's a manage expenses if you're using the expense module. And last here we have view my profile. So those are some of the options for the employee. Going over to the supervisor side, the options that they have here are they can view the employee's accrual balance, they can view the employee's point history, they can see the employee's schedule, they can do a team punch, which means they create a team within the mobile app and then they can punch in an entire team with one punch. So it works really well for maybe traveling crews that all enter a job site at one time. So then the crew leader could punch their team in all at once. Real handy feature. They can manage timesheets. So again, you can set accesses to read only. So this mirrors the access settings that's already built for these supervisors. So if they have access to specific pay codes, that transfers over into the managed timesheets on the mobile app as well. Approve time off request. They can manage the expenses that the employees submit. They can do a daily timesheet approval or approve the timesheet by the week. And they can also look at FMLA case summary if they're using FMLA module. So that's essentially creating templates for employees, supervisors. And don't get confused because you can always use supervisors or administrators to use this template. It would just need to be assigned to an admin at that point. Now that we've created the function keys, what we're going to need to do is go over to the appropriate access group. So I'm going to go over to the access within the menu. And inside of access, there's a mobile page. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. I'm going to click on employee access. And as you can see, the allow mobile access is checked. If this was unchecked, then they would get an error upon registration saying that they do not have access to the mobile app. So that's important. You can enable the passcode feature, which allows the phone to maybe create like a 4-digit passcode and then enable the biometric module as well within that phone if it has it available. The next part is the function key template, which is what we just created. So if you were to create multiple employee templates, maybe like the salary, hourly, part-time, you can create different templates and assign those to the access groups that you need. In this case, I just have the one. You can override the access group time zone. And the reason why you might want to do that is if employees are maybe working into different time zones. So maybe you're in the upper part of Michigan, and then you have jobs that you cross over into Wisconsin, and now you're going from Eastern time zone to Central time zone. You may want to follow the app phone time rather than the access group that the employee is assigned to. You can enable push notifications for punch reminders, which there's a little bit of a setup to that. You can enable punch with beacon. We do have beacon devices that can be installed in our time clocks. They're standalone beacon devices that allow the app to interact with the software through Bluetooth technology. You can also enable punch for meal breaks. So essentially here you can have the beacon, when you cross a beacon, it could then tell you maybe if you need to punch a lunch because you haven't punched for lunch yet within a certain parameter or a break. You can enable the indoor location tracking with the beacon technology. So if you've got the beacons placed throughout your facility, anytime the app crosses one of the beacon devices, it could then track and pick up where the employee could be within the building or your facility. Timesheet fields. So in the timesheet fields, this is where the employee, if they had access to manage timesheet, they would be able to see these columns and some of the ones that I additionally added over. The ones with the asterisks are required and as part of the timesheet by default. I added in locations, department, job, notes, reason code columns. So that's part of the access setup. The next part is the GPS location. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the GPS functionality and what that does as well. So with the GPS technology, it will allow you to see in a Google map where the employee is punching in and out from. So in that case, you would need to enable the GPS. Location data is required for mobile punch, meaning the employee must have location services enabled for the app, and it must be able to show on the map where the employee is punching from when the employee goes to punch. Enable lockout based on GPS location. So what this does is locations must be identified by address or latitude, longitude coordinates for the groups used for punching. So the configuration for this is where I'm going to navigate to now. So I'm going to go into the menu. I'm going to go into the company setup, system setup, general. From here, I'm going to go into group setup. In the section where it says GPS location, I'm going to select location in this case, but you do have the ability to select any one of your group levels. I'm going to leave mine at location, and then I'm going to go back into the menu, go into company setup, and then over to groups. From here, I'm going to select the location group, and I'm going to click on Wisconsin. And as you see here now, there's a GPS location section towards the bottom of the configuration. I'm going to go ahead and put in an address. I think that should do it. I'm going to go ahead and search. And it brings up a map and a little red dot here of where that particular address is. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And then I'm going to navigate back to, with the menu, Access, Mobile, and back onto the Employee Access Group. And down below in the GPS section here. So location data is required for mobile punch. We enable that. Enable the lockout based on GPS location, which we also call geofencing, which we can set a radius of up to, I'd say, go no lower than a ½ mile radius, typically where we would make that recommendation. Then you can also have enable auto transfer to group based on punch location. So what that means is if you have multiple locations programmed with addresses and the employee travels from the location to location and they go to punch in on that location, they need to be within this ½ mile radius of the location in order to punch. If they're outside of that radius, then they would not be able to punch and get an error when they try to punch on the application. So essentially we lock them into specific locations where they need to be punching from. Enable location tracking. This allows you to track the location every mile. You can store that route for up to 30 days. You're only going to track this employee every mile within the employee's work schedule. So if they work 9 to 5, then you will only be tracking that employee during that 9 to 5 schedule. And that should cover the setup on the administration side for the mobile device. So we covered creating a news record, adding the HW devices templates or function keys on what functionality either the supervisor or the employee would have. We created GPS groups. We looked at the mobile settings for access on this page here, any of the GPS location settings. So that should wrap up the configuration for administration. I'm going to move on over to showing the actual app from the employee's point of view and the supervisor's point of view. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about the employee experience and the supervisor experience with the app. A couple things here we're going to talk about: the registration, where we can download the app, and then the employee features and supervisor features. So the screen that I have up here now is the registration page. But before you get to this, you'll want to make sure that you have the employee's email address within the software. So in the employee's personal tab, you're going to want to make sure that you have a valid email address or phone number to receive the security code to do the registration. You can download the app from the Google Play Store for Android devices, and you can download the app from the iTunes Store for Apple devices. The first thing I'm going to do is complete this registration page. So I've downloaded the app, and now I'm going to go ahead and navigate over to the registration page. So the first thing we're going to put in is the client ID, which you can find that either on the login screen of NOVAtime, or we talked about this a little bit earlier in the webinar, is in the menu bar. If you open the menu bar and go all the way down to the bottom, in parentheses, you will see the client ID. So I'm going to go ahead and put in the client ID for my test site. I'm going to go ahead and put in my employee ID. If you were using this logging in as a supervisor rather than an employee, you would put in your supervisor ID. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and put my employee ID, which is 500. I'm going to go ahead and put in the password. This is the password that the employee will have to create. I'm not going to worry about this SSO login. I'm just going to go ahead and hit next after I put in the client ID, the employee ID, and the password. It's going to email that to me for the security code. So I'm going to hit next. And sometimes this does show up in your junk mail or your other folder. So you might want to just check and peek just to make sure. It does show up in my other folder for me in Outlook. So I'm going to go ahead and put in that code, 38056. That's my registration code. I'm going to go ahead and hit finish. Now it's going to ask me to set up a passcode. If you remember in the access, we allowed the creation of passcodes. So I'm going to go ahead and create a passcode, and it's going to ask you to confirm that. And then it's going to ask if I want to enable my Touch ID for biometrics. I'm going to go ahead and hit yes. And it says that I have successfully updated my app. I'm going to hit OK. By default, you're on the home screen. It's going to show how many hours I have, any overtime, what paid time off I have. But I'm going to go ahead and hit the hamburger menu or the menu bar in the top left corner. As you can see, we have home, which is where I am now. We can go to the dashboard for the employees. We can go to the clock in, clock out feature. We can go to my inbox, which would show any time off request messages, things like that. My team, which would allow me to log in as the supervisor or the user that I'm linked to. Myself, which is myself, the employee, in your settings. And then lastly, here you have the log out button. So I'm going to make sure I am in as myself. I'm going to click the myself. And under here, it does show the different templates that I have available, which is time off requests. I can view my PTO. I can see my timesheets. I can see my point balances if I have any, and we can view my own profile. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click on the dashboard. You can see me here as Patrick Smiles, tells you the time and day, and the blue bubble there with the number 2 under it, it does represent that I have some messages. So if I click on that blue bubble, the number 2, it shows that I do have some schedule request messages there. I'm going to go back and hit the menu, back to the dashboard. Below that blue bubble, you're going to see in and out time. Any exceptions I may have below that, like missing punches, absences, tardies, early outs, any overtime. Just below that, you're going to see your approaching weekly totals, which is that orange yellowish bar there. I don't have any scheduled work hours that I'm working currently. So I'm going to go ahead and just down below here, you can see that there is a go to timesheet and a submit button. It's just a shortcut to allow you to get to the timesheet page. And then for the submit, you can submit your timesheet. Back to the hamburger menu or the menu bar. I'm going to go ahead and hit clock in, clock out. I'm going to hit the punch button. You can see that it does show up in a map for my location services, which are enabled. I'm going to go ahead and hit punch. It says my punch was a success. We're going to hit OK. And we are good with the punch. Back to the menu bar. I'm going to go to myself. I'm going to click on the request time off. It does allow me to select a template. I can either do my vacation, sick leave, personal time. I'm going to go ahead and put in my vacation for 8 hours. Just going to have it for 1 day. You can see here by this calendar, I do have a vacation day that I already have approved this Friday, which is in green. I'm going to go over to November. You can see that I do have a pending day there on the 26th. I'm actually going to add my day for the 27th. I'm going to put it in for 8 hours, that's the template that's already built. And I'm going to submit my time off request for 8 hours. Request was submitted. We'll go ahead and hit OK. Back to the menu under myself. If I click View PTO, it's going to show you how much time I have available as the employee. Say vacation, I have 64 hours. If I click on that 64 hours, it does give you a historical breakdown of when I took time and when time was earned. So you can see on the very bottom, 1/1 is when the 80 hours became available. On 9/21, I used 8 hours and my balance is 72. And then on 10/30, just coming up here, I do have time that's already been approved for 8 hours and my available balance is 64. Back to the menu, myself. I'm going to click on timesheets. From here, I can see previous timesheet. If it has not been approved or submitted, it always defaults back to the previous. Once that previous is approved or submitted, then it does show the current pay period. So at this point, it has not been approved. You can select between the previous and the current. And you can hit the select button. You can actually select the days that you want to submit for the pay period if you're using the daily approval, or you could submit the entire pay period. I'm just going to go ahead and submit the entire pay period and hit yes. I certify this timesheet is correct. I'm going to accept the hours that I had for the previous timesheet. And my timesheet for the previous pay period has been submitted. Back to the menu, click on myself, click on my point balance. And if you did have a point balance here, if you're using the attendance point system, it would show a balance here. And then again, if you clicked on the balance, it would go into the history, just like the accruals. Currently don't have a balance for this particular employee. Myself, and I'm going to click on View Profile. This allows you to see any contact information, emergency contact. If you gave full access to this page, then you would be able to update this information. Currently, this is a read-only page. So if I go into myself, we covered the request for time off, the view PTO, or the accrual history. We saw the timesheets and how to submit the timesheets, the point balance, and then view your profile. I'm going to go ahead and click on My Team, which then allows me to navigate in as the supervisor or the administrator in this case. And I'm going to go ahead and click on Manage Timesheet. As you can see, this is the previous pay period. You can select current pay period. Once I select current pay period, I can see my list of employees here. You can click on one of the employees if you wanted to drill down a little bit deeper into the timesheet. If you click on My Team and I go to Approve Time Off, I can see here that I do have 2 pending requests from Patrick Smiles. You can see these in different views. So you could see a calendar view by just toggling from calendar to list. And you can create any notes as part of the request. And then I can also hit approve, and I can approve maybe both of them or just one or the other. I'm going to go ahead and approve both. Hit yes. And my PTO requests have been approved. I'm going to look at all, not just the pending. And you can see here by changing the status to all, I'm able to see any approved and declined requests. Go ahead and hit the menu, go down to My Team. I can hit View Schedules. So if they do have any schedules out there, for my employees, I'd be able to see these schedules. You can do that by date. You can do that by employee. So this would be Rhonda. And you can pick your different employees that you want to view schedules for. I go back into my team, manage PTO. I'm going to go ahead and click on Patrick Smiles, go into his vacation. And here is where you can see the accrual history. I'm going to go ahead and go back, go into my team. And then there's a team punch feature. First, you do have to create a team in order to do the team punch. Right now, I have 18 team members as part of my default team. So these are all the employees that I could do my punch for the team punch. You can do this as a group transfer as well. And one thing that I did want to show here is the ability to do a transfer as an employee. So let me back up, go to the clock in, clock out. There was the punch button that we did earlier. And then if I hit the group transfer button, it does allow me to enter a location. It still shows my GPS location because I am going to punch here. I'm going to enter my location. I'm going to go ahead and pick Wisconsin, and I'm going to go ahead and punch. So now I have successfully punched out of my default location and into the location of Wisconsin. Go ahead and hit OK. And back out to the main menu. Some of the settings that you can see, if I click on settings, see the client ID is up on top. It will show you the start page. So you can start from a dashboard or a home page. Sometimes I like to start from the dashboard page. You can say whether you want to default into the current pay period. If you're using the approval of timesheets, it will default back to the previous timesheet if you have not submitted your timesheet and you're in the current pay period. It's going to look at the biweekly cycles that we transfers. We're doing locations, just some display formatting, language options, GPS tracking, enabling notifications, enabling my default team when we do the team punch. Your passcode is on. You can set reminders, the dashboard options, so you can actually show additional dashboard options. Maybe I want to see my PTO history. I want to see my schedule, and that can all be part of the dashboard as well. You can say how long the auto logout is. For troubleshooting and support, there's a log file, shows the version on the bottom, and then your legal and privacy statements. Go ahead and hit the menu, and that should conclude the demonstration on the employee and the supervisor app. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing the app. I'm going to go back into my web page, share my screen. Go ahead and log in as the admin. Go over to the timesheet, bring up my employee 500. You can see my punches here. So if I click on the audit trail on the timesheet, this little black magnifying glass here, you can see that the employee punched from a particular location. If you click on that location, it does bring up the location that they punched from. Same thing on the out punch. You can also see the transfer here. So this employee's default location is California. And after I did my job transfer via the mobile app at 9:43, it showed that I'd been transferred into the Wisconsin location. Same thing, click on the magnifying glass, you'll be able to see the location of that transfer. Just a quick recap on the registration page that I did want to show you. If you go into the menu, employees, general page, once this loads up here in the more functions tab here, it does allow you to change and reset passwords for employees. So if an employee needed to have a password updated because they don't remember what it is, you can change the password or you can reset it, meaning the next time they log into the web portal, they would be prompted to create their own new password. On the personal page is where you also want to make sure that you have the employee's email address or phone number to do the registration of the app. That should conclude the NOVAmobile app demonstration. Take it away, Lucy.
Thank you, Jeff, for going over the NOVAmobile application configuration, setup, and usage. Next, I would like to highlight just some helpful resources for those of you who are on our call. Please note if you have any questions regarding the NOVAmobile application and need help with the configuration, please contact our support team who is there ready to assist you. Next, I'd like to point out some other resources. So within our NOVAtime system, you will notice that once you log into your database on the top right-hand side of the screen, if you navigate to the right-hand side, you'll notice that there's this question mark. If you click on that question mark, it's going to take you to online help. Online help has training resources for you as an administrator, for you as a supervisor, or an employee. Those resources are available to you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This here is just an example of the type of resources that are available. Please note we have documentation as well as videos on the various modules. Also, I'd like to highlight for those of you who are new that under online help, if you navigate over to Chapter 8, this is where our ongoing education lives. So this is where you can register for our upcoming webinars. Now, talking about upcoming webinars, I'd like to highlight that on a quarterly basis, we have a What's New, What's Been Fixed webinar. Please make sure that you take the opportunity to register. That way you can see what new enhancements and what new features are out there available to you as our clients. If you've missed our previous webinars, please make sure that you visit Chapter 7 and retrieve those release notes. Lastly, I'd like to point out that we do have a NOVAtime Go to Stage channel where you can find focused training on specific topics. So if you've missed a webinar and you'd like to retrieve that, go to our Go to channel, and that's where you can find those specific webinars and also other topics. Lastly, your feedback is greatly appreciated, so I'd like to ask everyone who is on the call if you could please take 1 or 2 minutes out of your time to complete our survey. This survey will help us improve our session. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Have a fantastic day and a great week, and we look forward to having you in our future webinars.